The Republican Zone is brought to you by Drew Murray, a modern view from the Republican lens, covering local and national news, understanding that one size doesn't fit all when it comes to politics. The Republican Zone airs Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. and Saturday from 3 to 4 p.m.
Good afternoon. You're listening to USLA Radio. My name is Drew Murray, and I am the host of the Republican Zone. My guest today is my friend Rania Major, who is an attorney who lives in the city of Philadelphia. We're going to spend most of our time, or some of our time today, kind of discussing COVID-19 and specifically its effect on our prison population. And, I tell people often, I try to bring people on the show who might disagree with me. I have enough people who, enough Republicans who I agree with, so I like to bring in people who don't agree with me, and oftentimes, as you know, Democrats. So the show might be called Republican Zone. I have many friends from both sides of the party, so welcome, Rania.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. So I call Rania my friend. We're Facebook friends, which means, of course, we know each other very, very, very well. Even though I don't think we've ever truly met in person, but I feel like I know Rania. We know a lot of the same people. Rania has also run for political office. She ran for judge, is it 2 cycles ago or 1 cycle ago?
17, right.
Yeah.
And the next year coming up.
Gotcha, yeah. And as anyone who knows the judge races, they are crazy. And you normally got to run. I know my friend Christian DeChico, he's run many times. You almost got to do it. You got to do it numerous times to, I say you get the tap. And then hopefully you can make it through. Well, thank you, Rania. Let me just give a little bit of background. You are an attorney. Let us know, what you do for a living. This is a Philadelphia show, so I always tell people where you grew up. Maybe what I went to St. Joe's Prep. Everyone knows that. We live in Philly. We like to say where we went to school or what parish we were in, and so just give a little bit of a background about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm a non-native.
Okay.
Grew up in Chicago. My father got transferred to North Carolina, where I finished high school, went to UNC with Michael Jordan and
Nice.
James Worthy, because I'm an old head. Went to law school in Alabama, and then I moved to Philadelphia 33 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And I've lived in Philly since and been practicing since 1987, which is when I moved to Philadelphia. I have a general practice with heavy concentration on litigation, specifically criminal, family, and personal injury, but I do everything. My office is located up in the barrio of Philadelphia, and it's a bilingual office, and I've been there since 1998.
Gotcha. And it's bilingual Spanish? Is that the other?
Yeah, Spanish.
the other
I also
language?
speak German.
Oh, okay. So what brought you to Philly in '87? Was it work? Was it?
When I was growing up, my parents, we always traveled a lot. And by the point I graduated law school, I think I'd done maybe around 35 states. So my choices that I wanted to go to, a big city, I wanted to get back up north, were DC and the Ivy meeting without connections. I wasn't sure when we were in Philadelphia. I wanted to be a Philadelphia lawyer. You hear me?
You were breaking up a little bit there. Yeah, we got
Uh-oh. You want me to do it again?
Or yeah, just we heard everything until, like I said, what brought you to Philadelphia? This is just the way COVID-19 radio works now, right? We're all all over the place.
So I chose Philadelphia. I wanted to get back up north. I didn't want to stay in the South. We had traveled a lot. It came down to Boston, DC, or Philly. And that came down to logic. Boston has all the Ivy League schools. I had no connections. And can you hear me?
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, now we're good. Yep.
Okay. And DC, I wasn't sure if it was good for the type of practice I wanted, so I came to Philadelphia. And my mother says when we visited Philly, when I was, I guess, around 16 or so, that I actually said that I wanted to be a Philadelphia lawyer. So here I am.
Nice. All right. And you're an Eagles fan, I hope? You're 4 for 4. You're all right. Yeah, you know that.
Season ticket holder. I'm
Nice.
wondering if we can get back. Same with the Flyers.
Yes. Yeah, I'm thinking no. I'm a season ticket holder as well, and I'm not expecting to be sitting in the stands this year.
I'm not either. It's really scary. I hope they can even play safely.
Yeah, hopefully. I think they can play safely. I mean, there's no such thing as social distancing in any sport, especially not football. But I think they'll play. I think they'll have to quarantine before they start the season, and then, they'll just they'll have to pick a few cities, and everyone's going to live in those cities and play in the same stadiums. But I think they got to get something right. We're all going crazy. We need sports.
Absolutely.
That's right. So we are in obviously a very crazy time. And I noticed on Facebook just a lot of debates. I feel like the debates are becoming more and more because we have a little more free time, unfortunately, and we're on Facebook a lot more, maybe a lot more than we even maybe should be. And a big debate that I saw early on, people were discussing COVID-19 and its effect on our prison population. And my Facebook friends, I have thousands of them, as I'm sure you probably do too. As soon as you run for office, your Facebook friends go from about a few hundred to thousands.
Exactly.
I don't even I probably don't know most of them. But because I used to be a Democrat, and because I'm actually a pretty moderate person, I say I used to be a very conservative Democrat. Now I'm a very liberal Republican. I have friends on both sides of the aisle, as I'm sure you do. So I see, and this is another big divisive issue. I have my mostly Republican friends who just think, people are in jail and they need to serve their time. And, there's
right.
Probably not enough empathy, I'll be honest with you there. And then you have people on the left who think we need to release those prisoners. Not all of them, but some of them.
Right.
I'm kind of in the middle. I'm torn. I'm not even in the middle. I'm torn because I see why the prison population at this time for the safety of maybe we would say more importantly, but everyone's important. The people who work there, the people who the security guards, everyone who works in the prison, but also for the safety of those who are in prison, right? As they say,
right.
They in prison, but it shouldn't be a death sentence, which is something I heard a lot, and I completely understand that. But I can't say I'm for allowing people to get out of jail because of this, and I'm torn. And this will probably be one of those issues. Maybe you can convince me otherwise because I am very torn. But I saw you on Facebook having debates with people, respectful debates. So, what are your thoughts on and being a defense attorney? So that's part of your practice, I believe. What are your thoughts?
Heavy part.
What was that?
Heavier before our new DA.
Gotcha. That's right. Well, we're going to get to him later, I'm sure. Anytime I hear someone doesn't love our DA, then that's something we're definitely going to talk about. But what are your thoughts on reducing the prison population during the pandemic?
Here's the issue, Drew. Early on, okay, when COVID started, and we knew that we needed to start preventing the spread, okay, particularly. There are a lot of people don't understand there are different statuses for a lot of the prisoners. So, for example, you have new arrestees that have have not even had their preliminary hearings yet. You have people that are brought in just on detainers. You have people that are waiting for trials. You have people that have been sentenced, that have county sentences, that are in the prisons. And they can range from anything from a DUI or a murder, a homicide, but typically the homicide people are going to be sent upstate. You have people that are there from family court because they haven't paid support, that are held in contempt. So today, I actually found out the prison that holds, for example, people for DUIs, the people for family court violations, and the people that are just getting ready to be released, that prison, ASD, actually is closed. They transferred all those prisoners over to detention center, which is a medium security prison, and has a lot more infections of COVID, and they cannot socially distance.
Why did they shut down that prison?
That I've been trying to find out today.
Gotcha.
I understand that they're actually going to start moving some people over to RCF. Riverside is the women's prison. As of today, Riverside has approximately 600 people in it, which means that their capacity has been a lot of people, a lot of women have been let go. They also have been housing the juveniles over there, so that number would include them. So I think because they maybe, I'm hoping, they believe that they can better social distance by sending them over there, but why didn't they just send them straight there instead of having them 10 people in a cell 2 feet apart?
Sure. So would you, so you listed some examples, a new, someone who's newly arrested that didn't have their preliminary hearing yet. And that could be anybody, right? That could be theoretically anyone from a minor offense, I'll call a DUI a minor offense.
Correct.
But, or a murder.
Correct.
Are you saying, what is your opinion on what are you saying? Is your opinion that those with the minor offenses should be released temporarily or?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Here's what the procedure is in case you don't know it. We have to write a motion to let somebody out. And so as a private attorney, we do that for the clients, obviously that we believe we can get out, because there are some, I lost you. There are some, of my clients that obviously I don't think they stand a chance. And I tell them, honestly, if you want to take the chance, I don't want you to say, if it gets denied, that I took your money for nothing. So the private attorneys and the PDs who've done massive amounts of these motions, send them to the district attorney's office, and there are a few DAs there that decide whether or not they agree. Whether they agree or object to the motion, once we get their answer, we then file it along with their objection or their agreement, and it goes to a judge, and the judge is deciding these on paper only. Recently, they've started having some conferences where it's only PDs and a DA there with the judge, but not private attorneys yet. So that's what's going on. So let me give you an example. Let's say that somebody is already on probation, and let's say that that person hired a prostitute and admits he hired a prostitute. And let's say that the prostitute, because he didn't have all the money to pay her, says, I'm going to call the police on you, because her John gets upset. So they call and claim that it was rape. So he's now arrested for rape. She gives a statement to the police where she doesn't tell them what her occupation was, and she's claiming these allegations. And then a few days later, she does another statement where she admits that she was hooking through whatever app, on the cell phone that she was using. And the guy has not had his preliminary hearing. He also has medical issues, okay? He has medical issues that make him more apt to be subject to COVID and actually die, as opposed to just getting sick. So, Drew, in that situation, would you say that he has to remain there?
Now, that's actually a tough one, because, in my mind, when we're talking about minor offenses, and this is obviously, this is someone who's innocent, but is charged with what I would define as not a minor offense of rape.
Right, he's charged with a violent offense.
He's charged with a violent offense, so it is tough. So what would you think should happen? Should his court date gets postponed, I assume, number one, because of COVID.
Absolutely, we don't even know it.
Yeah, but you're innocent until proven guilty. But he is charged with a horrific offense of rape. So, if is the answer to allow this person to not be held? Is it to just allow him to be released and postpone the date? Is it release but with restrictions, and maybe those restrictions? I'm not an attorney, so I'm not an expert. And
Right.
and that is some sort of home monitor to make sure this person.
No, house arrest isn't working right now, Drew.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem. When they do house arrest, they have to go to the person's house. and secure it and see what the coordinates are so it can be, programmed to the bracelet. So because of safety issues right now, they're not doing house arrest.
Okay, that's a good thing to know. Is I did not know. Could you not just have a monitor though to?
No, the monitors get keyed into the coordinates of the house. So even if there's a front porch, if the person steps out of their front door, the monitor will go off. So
okay.
for the safety of the people at probation and parole, or whichever the house arrest unit, then the reason is so they don't have to go into homes where people might be exposed.
And that makes perfect sense. And my guess is they probably don't have enough home monitors anyway, because why you wouldn't have, you wouldn't need a huge supply.
Right.
But obviously you take it by a case basis. But where do you draw the line? Obviously you're not letting a convicted murderer get let loose. But are you allowing people? Would you say that anyone who has not had their pretrial hearing should be released?
I can't say everyone,
Yeah,
because
no, it is. Yeah, it's a tough question.
some of the people that have had their preliminary hearings, let me give you another example. Let's say that somebody went to 7-Eleven right now and they took a gun and they held up the person with a mask on, okay? And they got all the cash and they stole it. But somehow on the video happens to show that the person's mask fell and they managed to make an arrest. Let's just use that hypothetical. So that person has now brandished a gun, has stolen, something, and he's on video. Do I think that person should be released? Most likely not, because he could turn around and really hurt somebody. Obviously, he has access to guns. So the courts are not letting out violent criminals or felons, but there is a line. And for example, most rape cases cannot, obviously, they're not letting them out. But in the example I gave you, I expect when the preliminary finally gets held that I'm going to get the rape charge dropped if that's a real case. Okay, so that person is sitting there with all these medical conditions. Let's just hypothetically say that they have asthma and they have a heart condition and they have high blood pressure condition, and they're more susceptible for something that they really did not even do. So you also, let's take someone in the middle. Okay, let's take someone who, let's say that we take someone that had a domestic. Okay, we have what we call love court. So it's where one of the partners in a relationship typically gets violent and hurts somebody. But a lot of times it's a he said, she said. So the girl gets angry because it's the ex-girlfriend. And so she makes up a story about her former boyfriend to keep him away from her new girlfriend. And in that situation, you don't always know, based upon the discovery, assuming we've already gotten it, which one's really the true case. There's no hospital reports or no medical reports. So what do you do with that person?
Sure. So right now, there have been some prisoners released early for COVID. Is that correct? Or I don't know if it's an early release.
Yeah.
Have there been parameters set, or is it literally a case-by-case basis?
No, there are certain parameters. As COVID has gone along, the parameters have gotten clearer. So the lower level, someone with all misdemeanors, someone who would also have a history of showing up for court and not failures to appear, those are the people that are getting targeted right now to be released. It's almost automatic for a lot of them, but it also depends upon their background and if they're on probation or parole, because they may have a detainer if they're on probation or parole, even if the probation or parole is for just misdemeanors. Then the parameters are nonviolent. The parameters are basically there has to be an exigent reason for that particular person to get out, and it's also dependent upon where they are in the criminal process and whether or not they have a detainer.
Okay. Now, are people being released who don't have underlying health issues, or is it only people with underlying health issues that are being considered, or could it be anyone?
No, it's been anyone. Again, the PDs have targeted certain cases. I mean, they have massive amounts of cases. The privates, our clients are all mixed. Okay. So some may have medical conditions, some may not have medical conditions. Understand that we're averaging, my guesstimate, because I haven't, for the last couple of days, I haven't been monitoring the groups so much with the lawyers. I would say we're at about 35% to 50% of our clients are getting out. The other ones are being denied. You need to keep this in mind. As
Okay.
of this week, Philadelphia prisons, and I'm specifically talking Philadelphia prisons, over 75% of the population is infected. Whether they are showing symptoms or not, that's what a newspaper article said that came out this weekend. And you have to keep in mind how many correctional officers, how many healthcare workers, how many social workers are also working up there. One nurse and one social worker have died in Philadelphia. I don't know if that's public, but I have my sources.
Gotcha. So these are 75%, and maybe you don't know this answer. They've been tested and confirmed, or some are assumed to
I
have.
think
I was assumed to have it.
To some extent, I think they're presuming it. Initially, they sort of just presumed that everybody had it because they were not adequately testing. There's no PPE in there, or at least there wasn't for a long time. When this started up, I spoke with the prison attorney. I said, what are you going to do? It was the same day that the commissioner came out and told Kurt Gray, who's a chief public defender, that they're doing all these things. But I had already been there that past Saturday, and I asked the correctional officers working at the prisons I visited, is this happening? Is this not happening? And the answer was no. So when I spoke to Greg Verado, he's prison counsel, he assured me all this stuff was going on. Well, guess what? You have 10 people in one cell living in bunk beds that are 9, 8 inches apart. And what they're doing for social distancing is putting one guy's head on one side and the guy's head on the other side on the bunk beds. That's just not going to work.
Do those who work in the prisons have the PPE? Do the prisoners have anything to protect themselves, either in the cell or when they're going?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Initially, the correctional officers did not. And I was just as concerned about them and the nurses when I spoke to Greg Verado and have spoken to other individuals, because I have clients that are correctional officers. Obviously, they're not up for criminal cases, but I have clients that are COs. And I also have some connections with some of the medical staff up there. 5,000 correctional officers as of today nationally are infected with COVID.
Wow.
I do not know. I haven't been listening to Philly due to an emergency for my mom. I'm down here in Florida, social distancing and quarantining. And so any event, the last I heard, there were 57 Philadelphia correctional officers with it. I'm sure that number is higher now. So that's what we're dealing with. It's not just the prisoners. That's why you have to trust that some people that show up for court, who did not sign up and have not been given a death sentence, get released, because it also protects everybody else and helps it so the prison can social distance the people that do not need to be back on the streets.
So what are your thoughts on, what are the protocols? So let's say someone is released, and obviously it could be different whether they're released before the pretrial hearing or someone who is convicted. Someone who's convicted, for example, if they're released early, what is your thought that they should be released on probation and their time in prison is over? Or should it be let them? And again, this could change. This could be different on each case. Should it be? And in my opinion, anybody who's released, I don't care if you're a week away from the end of your sentence or 2 years. If you are released, you should have to go back at the end of this. So if you have a week left, you get to go home. As you said, I would assume they could monitor them, but it sounds like they can't now. That they should go home if released, and they should have to come back again. If it's whether it's 6 months from now or a year from now, they need to serve out the entirety of their sentence, whether it's a week or 2 years. Because I have heard, and I think Movida Johnson was released early because of COVID.
Correct.
And she's done. I think there's a quote unquote house arrest that she has to stay home for a period of time, I assume without a monitor. But I don't think that's fair. I think Movida, I think it was deplorable what she did, and that's not because she's a Democrat and I'm a Republican.
Mm.
I think she should be serving out the entirety of her sentence. Um, she's not a risk to anybody, so I don't disagree with necessarily with her being released because it's healthier for her. And let's be honest, it's healthier for other people in prison and people who work at those prisons. But I think she should go right back, whether it's months from now or a year from now. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. And again, case by case, it could be different. But
Well, again, they would still have to go back. Okay, you're talking more like upstate. Okay, upstate, the governor's protocol has been that somebody can get basically a reprieve. So let's say somebody's upstate for an aggravated, well, maybe not an aggravated assault, but let's say that they're upstate because they've shoplifted too much. Because a lot of people don't know, after 3 convictions for shoplifting as a misdemeanor, it becomes a felony and you can go upstate. So they let that person out. Then that person, the time they're out does not count towards their sentence whenever they can go back to the prisons, and they have to turn themselves in, then their sentence will restart. So you're talking a reprieve. And that's fair. And that's what is really going on. I don't think people understand. These people aren't walking off their sentences. They're not just being released and don't have to answer. Like, let's say the preliminary hearing people, they don't just get released and not have to report back to court to have a preliminary hearing. Of course they do. Also, probation and parole is supposed to be, they've been shut down. Now there is some telephone reporting. So they may be doing that now to monitor some of these people, or a check-in, on a telephone call. But otherwise, there's nobody checking on them. And there's obviously no way you can say somebody, you don't know if they're staying in their houses, you don't know if they're social distancing, et cetera.
okay, so we're going to take a 2-minute break. We'll be right back. You're listening to USALA Radio and the Republican Zone.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Mom.
I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. And even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. I have a mentor, Maria, and she convinced me to continue my education. Just never judges. She's a true role model.
From the depths of my heart, I thank you, Maria, for being a friend and a beautiful person. No one receives a diploma alone, and I'm honored to share this moment with you. Thank you.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to USALA Radio and the Republican Zone. I am Drew Murray, the host of the Republican Zone. I'm here with my friend Rania Major. We've been discussing, for the most part, the release of prisoners for COVID-19 reasons, for both their safety and the safety of those who need to work in prisons. And we were talking about, the reprieve that some have gotten. I had given an earlier example of Movida Johnson, who was basically given early parole. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that case specifically, but I think that was unfair. I think Movida, I think she should be going back to jail. I know it's house arrest now, but the bottom line is we're all on house arrest, right? So what kind of punishment, is that, it's not just about when you go to prison, you know better than I do, Rania. It's not just about keeping people who are violent or a danger to society. It's paying a debt to society. And Movida is not doing that. We're all on house arrest, so she's not doing anything
Right.
else, but the rest of us aren't doing. So, speaking specifically to that case, I mean, do you think it's fair that she's basically done her sentence and didn't, in my opinion, pay her debt to society?
With regard to Movida, it's a tough situation. I do not condone what she did by any means. And by the same token, through the Charles Foundation, which is her foundation that she has, and everything that she does for anti-violence, we know that she's not a violent threat to the community. So yes, I think that it's fair for her to have gotten out. Insofar as what she has to do or not do with regard to the rest of her sentence, I'm not exactly sure if she has to turn herself back in, if it's actually a reprieve, or if it's just early parole at this point, or actually, early parole.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I Googled it real fast right while we were on break. It said early parole. So
I'm pretty sure that it was, but
yeah.
I haven't read it in a while.
Sure. But then, there are two things. Like, so the release of prisoners early, you need to think about whether or not they're a threat to society, right? A threat
Right.
to anyone. And, that's got to be the first thing. And if they're not, then are they a threat to run, basically? Are they not going to come back? And that's another consideration. And then the last consideration is, and I would be fine if we knew no one was going to be a threat to society, and we knew that person was going to come back, because I think there's the two parts of not only being a threat to society, but also paying your debt to society. And I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you know that, number one, someone's not going to be a threat. Some cases it's probably easy. And I agree, Movida is not a threat to anyone else. And I understand and would honestly agree with her release, because what she did is not a death sentence. And again, it's not just keeping prisoners safe, it's keeping those who work with those prisoners safe. So I'm fine with her being released, but I'm absolutely not fine with her getting early parole. And it's too late now, but I think she should have to go back. I think anyone should have to go back, because you have to pay that debt to society. And it's not just being a threat. It's not just a threat to run. It's about paying that debt to society and paying that full debt.
Because she was she was fairly newly sentenced. I think you also, the courts have to look at, and I think they have been looking at, how much of the sentence does somebody have left? For example, the state prisoners, the governor's guidelines are basically, are they going to be released within the next 9 months? So that's sort of the guideline for the state prisoners, but each county, just like Philadelphia, has made up, their own guidelines and their own rules. And clearly we have the most prisoners out of anybody in the state. You also have to, again, think about the people that work there, and every person that can be released gives more opportunity to socially distance and to have kept the correctional officers, the nurses, the non-prisoner staff safe as well, because now you're dealing with everybody who's infected. And honestly, Drew, at this very point, having learned that 75% of the people are infected, if those are actually tested people, then how do you release them when they could infect somebody else?
Sure. No, and I heard that.
And so it's a continuum. It's not something, there's a point where in the law, there's a balance. There's always a balancing act. And there's a point in the law where the state's rights to safety and public safety, just like the governor issuing his order, that's being challenged. And the civil rights and the constitutional rights of a person come into conflict. And at some point, the state right may take priority, because now the state interest is Philadelphia accounts for approximately a third of all the deaths in Pennsylvania and a third of all of the active COVID cases that have been tested. Our numbers have to be higher. They have to be higher.
Sure.
But we just don't know them. So at some point, the state interest comes more in line with a person's personal liberty interests. It's a tough decision. That's why it has to be case by case. You can't talk about it in a vacuum.
Has anyone looked into, for maybe these cases, for those who are not threats to other people? And this sounds crazy, but looking into hotels. The hotels are empty. They could basically be a house arrest, but a whole hotel, and where they could then socially distance and allow for better social distancing within the prison itself.
There are also some free houses that some landlords are giving for any frontliners who want to socially distance from their loved ones. So, but how do you do that for the prisoners? And then do you become accountable for feeding them, for getting them PPE, for getting them toothpaste and everything else that they have to get? And how do you get it to them if they're spread out throughout the city? So
Sure.
I don't
Well,
know about the feasibility and the cost.
Yeah, well, that's why I was thinking hotel. Like, it could be, you pick specific hotels where you could lock
It
it
would be
down,
nice.
basically. Yeah.
Oh, then I would agree, and you could put one or two people in a room and that's it, and socially distance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
But
the
who's
Four
going to pay
Seasons
for
is.
that?
Yeah, I don't think the Four Seasons is opening their doors, but some other hotels might be willing to open up just for some sort of revenue. And the payment would have to be by, whether it's the state or the federal level, depending on what type of prison it is, that's where the money
Right.
theoretically would come from. And there would be some there's never savings, but basically money is moved from one place to the other. You're obviously feeding these prisoners in the prisons. So that money could be used, instead of feeding prisons, at a hotel. But the cost, no doubt, would increase, because then, you have to then have people, corrections officers and people at these theoretical hotels. So just a thought. I didn't know if it was even looked into yet, because look, I will agree with you. If you're having 10 people in a cell that their best
Yeah.
attempt at social distancing is sleeping head to toe on different bunks, then that's a little crazy. And it's crazy for the people who have to work there, because it is rampant. But you do bring up a big, very difficult challenge. If 75% of those people are infected, how do people on the outside feel about them being released? Because they are infected. So, if they're released, then, and I guess the hotel is also came to my mind as a quarantine, being able to quarantine those who are infected. So if they
No,
were
I
released.
think it's a great idea. I don't know, though, that there's even enough correctional staff to run it, because again, they would have to run the hotel
Yes.
and ensure that people stay in their rooms, that they get their meals, that they get their medications. Remember, you have
That's
nursing
true.
staff.
Yep.
So right now, a lot of correctional officers are out sick. Some of them, may be having to take care of their children that are out of school, so they're using some of the exemptions, and they're understaffed to begin with. So then when you start adding another facility, I mean, think about it. House of Corrections is totally open. When this first went down, I had a client that got released on a Friday. He used to be at ASD, and he was on a team that was cleaning cells at House of Corrections and swapping them down, because at that point they were thinking they would take the COVID prisoners and put them in House of Corrections. But now they're not even using House of Corrections. It's insane. They could have done that.
Sure.
Like your
And now,
hotel idea. And it's already a city facility, right? They already know how it works. It's already has all the cells. Why didn't they use that to help socially distance temporarily? And I hate House of Corrections. It's not safe. They have asbestos, they have lead paint. It's horrific. They had rats. But by the same token, they could have temporarily used it.
sure. Today, it is absolutely a tough issue. And there's probably no right answer. And you're right, it has to be done on a case by case basis. But I will tell you, as a Republican, we'll get a little political here. It felt to me that the first thing, and I don't like him a little bit, our district attorney did, what he worried about was the prison population. And it's fine for him to, look, I am for criminal justice reform, just not his level of it. But it was like the first thing he was worried about was the prisoners. Instead of worrying about our police officers, instead of worrying about, the people in his office, it seemed like the first thing out of his mouth right when this started was, we need to start letting people out of prison. So some of us, we get a little nervous. We think he's doing this not for the right reason, but for his own political reasons. And I think that's why a lot of people right off the bat, because it felt like it came from him. That's probably not accurate, but the first time I heard of prisoners being released was, I believe, an interview where he said it. And so I was like, nothing that comes out of his mouth do I take without a grain of salt, because I just don't trust him. And to me, it sounded crazy off the bat. And if it came from someone else who was, someone like you, who said, look, this is going to be, this is an issue both for the corrections officers, the nurses who work there, as well as all the prisoners, whether they're violent offenders or non-violent offenders, or even some minor offenses. We need to think about this. But because it came from Larry, a lot of Republicans, and actually I'm just going to say a lot of people, because I think Republicans and Democrats are not real happy with him right now. And it became political, right? It became, no, we can't let anyone out. They got to serve their time. And, again, it's challenging. But, why is Larry, again, and you can't answer this, but why is Larry Krasner, his first thought is the prisoners? He's the number one prosecutor in the city, and his thought is not on the citizens, it's on prisoners.
Obviously I don't know what was going through Larry's mind, but I agree with it, because everybody knows instantly that institutions, whether it's an assisted living place, whether it's a nursing home, whether it's a hospital, whether it's a prison, those are where you have your most vulnerable people. The prisons in Philadelphia typically carry a lot of diseases, okay? There's MRSA, there's staph infections. There are a lot of people there that are very sick. That's why we have medical care up there.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they get it, not that they get everything that they need, but I'm not going to go down that path right now. But there are a lot of people that in those group settings, that's where everybody had to try to go into some form of social distancing immediately, be it a prison or not. When Philadelphia closed down their nursing homes, and I called down to Florida and immediately talked to the owner of my mother's assisted living and got them to close and socially distance, because Florida's governor wasn't doing
Mm-hmm.
anything. So you have somebody like Larry versus somebody like, let's say, Florida's governor, who's on the other extreme, not doing anything, or some of the states that didn't. What is better? He also, in that way, would be helping the correctional officers, the medical, the other staffs. He knew that would come up. Do I think that he should also have been concerned about getting enough PPE to the police force? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's his job. Okay. Do I have friends on the force? Absolutely. Are there police officers that I respect? Yes. Are there cops, because I demarcate, that I don't necessarily respect when they testify or make an arrest? Yes. But do they all deserve to be safe, just like our clients? Yes.
Well, sure. And, but again, and it's because it came from Larry, and it seemed like it was
I know.
his first concern.
I understand that. I understand that. And as a criminal defense attorney, I like the fact that our clients are getting a fair break.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only, again, it's a case by case basis. And for once, they're getting fairer sentences. The judges are seeing more of the social issue side of it, because there is a big social side of it, or the recidivism and psychological issues. However, I do think that, in my opinion, and I can't believe you're going to get me to say this in public, I disagree with some of the things, because I think Larry went too far. Gun cases where they've been used
Mm-hmm.
are a totally different story. Where they're in possession, it's in the middle somewhere. Again, it's a case by case basis. But I do personally feel that the reason our crime has risen and all of these gun cases are going on and shootings are going on is because of the way that office has been managed.
No, and I agree. And so you do it by case basis. I mean, how quickly are these cases being heard? I mean, are they
Well,
being done virtually?
No, they're just starting. They're setting up now to start doing virtual preliminary hearings, I believe it is what I read quickly today, trying to catch up
Mhm.
since I've been down here a few
Sure.
days. They are trying to start some virtual. The Supreme Court order that came out last week said that preliminary hearings are to take place. The problem is Philadelphia is not set up for that. And you would think as a major city that it would be easy, right? And we're not set up for that. So they have to get that all into place. The hearings that I have been having have been in family court, for example, on custody cases where people are using COVID as the reason not to let the other parent have contact or see their child. Those are taking place on a phone conference, typically with the parties or dependency cases. But the criminal system's just not, for whatever reason, set up that way.
No, yeah, I can't imagine they're doing it very quickly. I mean, I'll say you change my mind a little bit by saying, you got to look at it number one by case basis. But are they even making a dent in any of this? Are they minimizing, or I should say, are they de-densifying the prisons with releasing some criminals when it's done on a case by case basis? Have they done any? Not have they done anything? Have they made any headway of getting some of these prisons less populated in a way that's going to do any good?
The only one that I know of for sure is RCF, because I got that information that it's down to about 600 people. The prisoner that died, the woman who passed away, was from RCF, and the prisons had already been on lockdown, but she was a cleaner. Some prisoners get to work, and that's how they get money on their books because they're low risk. So she only cleaned CFCF, which is, one of the maximum prisons and the entry prison. And she was cleaning the correctional officers' facilities. She was cleaning bathrooms that were no longer in use and the visiting rooms that were no longer in use by that point. And somehow she got COVID, and that's what caused her to die. So that means she got it from a correctional officer, most likely bringing it in, because we do have these silent carriers.
Sure.
So RCF got a lot of people out of there probably because of that situation. And the women tend to have smaller grade, for the most part, criminal problems. But they've made a dent because they're able to move everybody from ASD over to detention center as well. And the trailers, which are ASD, I don't know how many people they house. My guesstimate would be maybe 300.
Okay. So you've convinced me a little bit for case by case basis, non-violent criminals who are not a threat to run, to look at it a case by case basis. But again, I would always say never released early on bail. I would think, in my opinion, no matter what, you got to serve your full time. But so we're kind of coming to an end here. So what is up next for Rania Major? You had mentioned you had run for office before. You ran for judge. Are you looking at political office in the near future?
I'm hoping for 2021 to run for judge again.
Okay.
I did not last year because of a family situation I was dealing with. And
what court did you run for? Was it municipal?
Well, it doesn't work that way for judges, Drew. We pick numbers, so whichever one's your better ballot position is the one. I was for common pleas. But
Okay.
let's say I draw a municipal court better number, then I would run for municipal. So either one, but Philadelphia County.
Okay. So your plan is to run again in 2021. I'm interested to see what signatures are going to be like in the future. I'm running for state rep now in the 182nd. Signatures were just finished right before this all happened, and the only reason they were finished was because of it's a presidential election, so they were early.
Right.
I'm wondering what's going to happen in the future as far as signatures. I mean,
I mean, I know they don't have to be notarized,
They
but
don't
I
have to be
don't know how
notarized.
signatures are going to be either, because you know how they're petition parties.
Yeah.
And for people that don't know, each ward has a petition party where the people that are active in the ward come and try to help all the candidates of their choosing get their petition signed just to get on the ballot, or they go out to, somewhere in public where there are large events to get people to sign. And I don't know, Drew, I mean,
Sure.
this thing is going to change the whole fabric of our
Gonna change
lives in so
everything.
many ways.
Yeah, well, Act 77, you didn't have to get notarized petition this cycle. That wasn't because of COVID. That was because of Act 77, which is
Correct.
awesome. I love not having to get them notarized. But yeah, you're lucky. You're a Democrat. We Republicans have to knock on. There's no parties, and if there are, there's only a
No,
few
that's
people
not
that show up.
true.
There's
No,
a
no,
few, but
no. I
not
went
many.
to some.
Yeah, there's a few, but not many. And no, yeah, the 8th ward had a party for me this cycle. The 5th ward did, but if I got bored, I say only 300 signatures for state rep. That's, believe me, in Center City as a Republican, that's hard. I think I got
Yeah.
450. More than half were purely knocking on doors, and people aren't going to answer their doors anymore. I don't answer my door now. Because of COVID, and everyone has that Ring doorbell. If you've ever seen that, I have one. You look at your
I have
phone.
one.
You know exactly who's at the door. I mean, if you saw me knocking on the door, you'd be like, I don't know that guy. I'm not opening it. So
Yeah, I don't know. And here's the other thing about that, right? Especially the elderly and certain other people, they don't have access even to a computer. So it's not like you could do an email petition that they could be guaranteed to sign. So are you going to be spending more money to send out petition notices to sign a petition and mail it back in? I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I don't know I know it's the process for Republicans is extremely challenging. It's challenging no matter what. Anything. When I ran for city council, I got 1,500, and it was hard. And it's, again, hard for everyone, but for Republicans, it's extremely challenging. We're going to every 10 doors, not 9 out of 10 doors. So if you can imagine. But that was my choice. I became a Republican, so I can't complain too much about it. So,
Why did you switch?
you know what, I registered in college, so back in 1990. My parents were both Democrats, so like most people, you registered the same as your family. I always consider myself very conservative. I tell people I don't feel that I left the Democratic Party. I feel like the Democratic Party left me. It became it's gone further left. You have your Larry Krasners. You have, and I'm not speaking badly about Bernie Sanders, but I am a capitalist, and so I felt, I was a very, very conservative Democrat. I felt the party left me. So that is why, and it was only a couple of years ago. I'm not a huge fan of the president. That's not why I didn't leave because of
Let's
Trump.
not even go there.
Yeah, I didn't leave because of Trump. I'm not a huge fan, but that is when I left. It was right about when he became president. Trump is not the Republican Party, and the Republican Party is not. So we'll see.
I don't know. Maybe the party's finally figuring that out, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, hey, I like some things he does. I some things that come out of his mouth. I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of people, including the people we work with, wish there was like a 10-second pause that when he talks sometimes, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense. But you know what? You listen to Biden talking, sometimes he doesn't make much sense either. But that's what we got, right? So what are you going to do? So yeah, we're coming to an end. Thank you so much for coming. Good luck. I'm sure I'll see you hopefully someday we'll meet in person. And
absolutely. Thank you for having me, Drew.
And thank you for coming on. So you were listening to Usula Radio and the Republican Zone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.